Welcome back to Movies TV Mad. Of course, you can follow me on Twitter and on Vero at Movies TV Mad. And I'm Mick Minas, and welcome to Tuesday's edition of the DCEU Daily. What the Batman and the central multiverse strategy does for the DC Extended Universe going forward, it gives it a palatable variety. So you've got a situation here where we're making the multiverse canon part of the shared continuity and universe, and we're rebooting the brand. So someone like Matt Reeves comes in and says, listen, I don't want anything to do with that. I want my own continuity. I want to make a standalone movie and maybe a standalone trilogy. I want HBO Max shows. I want it to be in its own kind of, glass globe, its own mushroom. So, Ann Sarnoff and Walt Hamada are saying, well, that's great. We want to accommodate you, but you're not going to be involved in our Earth 1. Here's your own Earth 2. You can mould it any way you want. Now, Matt, what we're doing by giving you your own Earth, because we're enacting a multiverse strategy, if you do want to play in the central universe at any time and you change your mind, you can slip into it and out of it now and again. So there's a lot of stuff in the media right now about the Batman, and this is an interesting one. The Batman starts with Bruce Wayne and Alfred not on speaking terms. I like this. The Batman is on the way, and as you have probably seen from the trailer, we're going dark. I am trying very hard not to put in the meme with the tiny little bat yelling, "No, stop touching me, I am night." In addition to Robert Pattinson as Bruce Wayne, the film from director Matt Reeves will feature Catwoman Zoe Kravitz, the Riddler Paul Dano, the Penguin Colin Farrell and his makeup team, and of course Alfred, Andy Serkis. Serkis as Alfred is brilliant casting and very unexpected. Listen, I was surprised by the casting of Serkis. Serkis is a multi-talented human being. What he did on the Lord of the Rings franchise was sensational. He was involved with Planet of the Apes as well, which of course was written and directed the second and third film by Matt Reeves. So they've got a pre-existing kind of relationship. So it's great to have him as Alfred. He could end up being the best one. Let's see. As we see in the trailer, he and Bruce aren't seeing eye to eye. Not that they do most of the time anyway, but the line, "If this continues, it won't be long before you have nothing left," is pretty telling. Alfred has always been Bruce's mentor, and mentors try and pull you back to kind of be more kind of balanced with your thinking. Someone who grew up with a mentor himself, they don't always tell you what you want to hear, but they always tell you what you need to hear. Serkis' other line from the trailer is, "Dear God, he doesn't sound happy." Well, he's not. According to an article in the February 2022 issue of Empire magazine, which will hit shelves on December the 23rd, Bruce and Alfred are on the outs. Considering how much of a father figure to Bruce he is in the Batman mythology, that's got to hurt. For someone like this version of Bruce Wayne, that could take out a major stabilizing element of his life. In the magazine, Serkis says, Bruce is on this nihilistic journey and they've pulled apart. It's got to the point where they almost no longer talk. If they bump into each other in the corridor, it's a very icy and painful greeting. They almost live in separate worlds now. The irony's not lost on me, and I'm sure it's not lost on you, that they live in this big mansion together, but they're barely talking. Because as I just said, this is a mentor who's not telling him what he wants to hear. He's trying to pull him back from the brink, but there's no pulling Bruce back now because he wants to clean Gotham. He's fueled by the death of his parents, and the more information and clues the Riddler gives, the more sucked in he becomes. So this is really a fascinating narrative for a comic book movie. The Batman will hit theatres on March the 4th, 2022. Here's the official synopsis for the film. Let's read it one more time. 2 years of stalking the streets as the Batman, Robert Pattinson striking fear into the hearts of criminals has led Bruce Wayne deep into the shadows of Gotham City, with only a few trusted allies: Alfred Pennyworth, Andy Serkis, Lieutenant James Gordon, Jeffrey Wright. Amongst the city's corrupt network of officials and high-profile figures, the lone vigilante has established himself as the sole embodiment of vengeance amongst his fellow citizens. When a killer targets Gotham's elite with a series of sadistic machinations, a trail of cryptic clues sends the world's greatest detective on an investigation into the underworld, where he encounters such characters as Selina Kyle, aka Catwoman Zoe Kravitz, Oswald Cobblepot, aka the Penguin, Colin Farrell, Carmine Falcone, John Turturro, and Edward Nashton, aka the Riddler, Paul Dano. As the evidence begins to lead closer to home and the scale of the perpetrator's plans becomes clear, Batman must forge new relationships, unmask the culprit, and bring justice to the abuse of power and corruption that has long plagued Gotham City. And this is going to be no mean feat in this movie. So you can see the complexities in the narrative of the Batman already. And this is what I talk about variety in a comic book live action franchise, because it's a whole thing. It is the whole thing. It's still the DC extended universe because it's extended onto another Earth. You can still frame it as the DCEU, but it's not within the central universe of the DC extended universe. The Batman is a standalone movie, but Robert Pattinson has a map of where he'd go next, exclusive. The last time we got a new big screen Batman, he was being plugged into a pre-existing franchise. Ben Affleck's Bruce Wayne, factoring into Zack Snyder's Man of Steel follow-up Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice. For better or worse, he was always part of a bigger picture, immediately pitched against Henry Cavill's Supes for a showdown, as subsequently flung into the Justice League. But that's not the plan for Matt Reeves' upcoming The Batman, introducing Robert Pattinson as a very different Bruce Wayne Batman. For the first time since Christopher Nolan's game-changing Batman Begins, we're meeting a brand new Bat in his own right. As the first standalone Batman in 10 years, the hope is we can lay a foundation that you can build stories upon. Producer Dylan Clark tells Empire of where the Batman sits, which isn't to say there isn't stuff planned on the fringes of Reeves' film. A raft of HBO Max spin-off series are in the works, including one set in Gotham PD and one reportedly due to involve Colin Farrell's Penguin. That's a fact now, that's been officially announced. But if nobody's talking about crossovers or specific sequel plans yet, Pattinson has had thoughts about where he'd take his version of Bruce Wayne. If future installments were to materialise, I've made a kind of map for where Bruce's psychology would grow over 2 more movies, he says. I would love to do it. So this is, as an actor, as I know, this is what you do psychologically. You think about the arc of your character. It doesn't mean you're taking over the narrative. Matt Reeves would never allow it. But he is working alongside his lead actor, and that's really good to hear. As for Reeves, he is currently focused on the Batman, hoping to deliver a Dark Knight story that feels distinct to the myriad of others that have come before. I've only ever made each movie as a passion project, he explains. This even more so because when you know something has been done well before and is so beloved, you can't just come in and sleepwalk through it. You have to shoot for something. We're trying to leave our mark on this. And that's what he says. So to be clear, he's not saying this is the only movie we're doing. He can't say that. He's already got 2 The Batman spin-offs from Earth 2 on HBO Max. There will be the Batman sequels. There definitely will be. No question about that. No matter what someone tells you, more are coming. This would have to be an absolute disaster in the box office not to happen. But you look at the Suicide Squad, where James Gunn got the Peacemaker, streaming show before even the Suicide Squad was released. And that's interesting because the Suicide Squad didn't do very, very well in movie theatres. But what's interesting about that, James Gunn is saying the Peacemaker show is like a 6 kind of part sequel. He's framing it as a sequel to the Suicide Squad. Now, if you're a James Gunn fan and you want an official Suicide Squad 2 and 3 from him, that's kind of troubling, because Warner Brothers could have thought about it and say, well, listen, your box office wasn't great. We kind of lost money here, so is it worth bringing you back? But then when you hear that his good wife is going to cameo in Black Adam, and I've already made the assumptions that she's going to recruit Black Adam for the Suicide Squad, that would tell me that James will be back for more. But the Batman is as highly anticipated as Spider-Man No Way Home has become and has always been. So you look at two scenarios here. You've got basically the box office for Spider-Man No Way Home tells you everything that you need to know. People like that. They want that. Do you understand? They like the fact that two previous actors as Spider-Man have returned as Spider-Man, that they're on screen with Tom Holland's current iteration of Spider-Man, that we brought back villains from the Raimi and Mark Webb era. So you can have a central universe that does that, but you can also have these offshoots, and you can have this Earth 2, the Batman universe, that does its own thing via movies, via HBO Max spin-offs, prequels, whatever they're doing with those two pieces of content on HBO Max. It's all there. It's all there. So going forward, the DC live-action universe is going to have a lot more strings to its bow than the Marvel Cinematic Universe. The Marvel Cinematic Universe is the most popular thing in entertainment right now. There's no denying that. There's no point, even as a DC stan, denying it. But what Warner Brothers can do here, and what Warner Brothers in fact are doing, they're creating this multiverse, this central extended universe. But on the other side of it, you've got things like the Batman, a Joker sequel in its own Elseworld as well. So they're doing different things that Marvel probably will refuse to do, because all Marvel and Disney want is family, pure, clean family entertainment. Well, DC can do both. You can do the clean, the clean family entertainment like Shazam. And it's interesting when I talk to children and families and parents and uncles and aunts, the one DC film and character that they mention to me is Shazam, and how much they love it. It's not Batman, it's not Superman, it's not the Suicide Squad, it's none of the others. It's not Aquaman, it's not Wonder Woman even, and she's very popular right now. She's one of the most popular characters in the DC Extended Universe. It's Shazam. And even though it made a paltry, 300 million or whatever it made, right, which was a big profit because it didn't even cost 100 million to make. So it made a little profit, and people love that movie. People are excited, people are excited for Shazam! Fury of the Gods. And if Wonder Woman and Superman are in it, imagine how bigger and more successful that film is going to become. So you have an audience for Shazam. You have an audience for Aquaman, Wonder Woman, The Flash. They've all got their fans and their audiences. And what they're attempting to do here is have a central kind of wholesome kind of universe with the multiverse strategy, but then you've got darker elements like with the Batman and the Joker and the Joker sequel. So something is really happening here, and if these plans come to fruition, it's going to be very, very exciting for the fans, the consumer and the audience, because this is what you need in a franchise. You need a central universe that ticks all the boxes for the general mainstream audience, but then there's people who like darker stuff, so you can give them the Batman, the Joker franchise. That means everyone's happy. There's something for everyone. And that was always the idea of the multiverse strategy. So for me, that's very, very exciting. Someone said to me today, they compared, earlier this morning, they compared Ann Sarnoff to, what's her name, Lucasfilm, Kathleen Kennedy. And I said, no. Ann Sarnoff did a great job at BBC America and that BritBox. She's very good at what she's done. In fact, she's made some great changes at Warner Brothers Pictures right now as well. She made sure that all the executives, all the storytellers all communicate with each other, that they have conference calls with each other. If you're David F. Sandberg, You can get to talk to other directors about what they're doing. Everyone knows what they're doing. Everyone's on the same page. And it's not just about the creators. It's about the producers, you know, the money people. Everyone's talking to each other. And what Anne pointed out, which was a very good point at the beginning when she first came in, no one was talking to each other. Everyone stuck to their little departments. But she's talking about Warner Brothers Pictures as a whole. She's not just talking about the DC Extended Universe and DC live action. So Anne has made some very, very positive moves thus far. And I think this is great for the future of Warner Brothers itself. But what me and you care about is DC live action at least trying to compete with the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It's actually quite funny because after I pressed pause on this video, I went onto Twitter to see if there's any developing stories we can discuss on today's DCEU Daily, and I saw the usual thing, like, I will watch the odd DCEU movie if it catches my attention, but let's not kid ourselves, WB don't have an actual plan. Listen, right now, the Snyderverse isn't part of that plan. And I know that's triggering. It's triggering to me because I want the Snyderverse to be restored. But I don't go around selling fake propaganda and fake narratives. I've just explained to you, WB do have a plan. You can say they don't, but they do. Maybe it's not the plan you want. You can say you don't like the plan, but you can't say they don't have one. They had a plan under Snyder. Ultimately, they rejected the plan. That is facts, right? They ousted him. They ousted him. We know that, right? Since he's been gone, right, they brought in Walter Hamada, who always had a plan. That's why we were hearing stuff like the worlds of DC. That was the idea. The multiverse strategy. The different worlds of DC ultimately colliding. There is a plan. The multiverse strategy is a plan. Rebooting the DC Extended Universe is a plan. There's a plan in place. And next year, that kind of narrative is going to be exposed. If saying these things because you want to restore the Snyderverse makes you happy, it makes you feel easy at night, it helps you sleep easy at night, that's great. I support what you support. I love Zack Snyder, but I'm not going to sell fucking lies. There's a plan. I actually like the plan because even though I love the Snyderverse in the DCEU, I'm not a Zack Snyder stan only. I'm a fan of DC. I want us to have the most inclusive universe in live action. What do I mean by that? I don't just want you and me to be happy who love Zack's stuff. I want the diehard DC fans to be happy. I want everyone who wants different things to be happy. I want Batgirl stans to see the Batgirl movie and be happy with it. I want Shazam Fury of the Gods to please the Shazam fans. And this is where we're heading for. Because when you just cater to one set of fans, you're not going to make the money, right? It's just like only selling cola in a supermarket. You wouldn't do it, would you? But cola's dark and it's sweet and it's great. Why not? Because you can make more money catering to more people. That's why a supermarket sells lasagna as well as cola and fruit and veg and lots of different things. And the DCEU needs to cater to these audiences. Now, the Marvel Cinematic Universe only has to cater to the central audience because the central audience is the hugest audience. It's people who have never read a Marvel comic book before. It's people who wouldn't normally watch comic book movies. There's people now, since the release of Spider-Man No Way Home, I've just seen Spider-Man No Way Home. How do I get into these other movies? What movie should I watch first? This is what happens after the end of time in Doctor Who. How do I get into Doctor Who? Do I watch the classics? Do I watch, this is what happens, and this is what happens. There's a vast audience there. And whether you like it or not, it's a business. And again, for the people at the back who are going to get upset, I like the Snyderverse, but you can't just serve everyone the Snyderverse. It isn't good business. Just like the consumer reacted to Spider-Man No Way Home, making it clear in no uncertain terms what the audience want. more of, and I'll talk about that a bit more in another video later on today, Cinema Today, where yes, we're going to do another one of those, but it's clear, with the Snyderverse, it has a good pocket of a cult following, and that's great. That's why it was dumb to remove Snyder. That's why it's dumb not to restore the Snyderverse, but you can't just serve people the Snyderverse. I'm sorry. And the Snyderverse was never meant to be forever anyway. Zack planned a beginning, middle and an ending, and he should have been allowed to do that. So this multiverse thing, this Flashpoint thing, was always going to happen whether they ousted Zack or not. This is not a brand new plan. This was the plan. So what they are attempting to do, they do have a plan, is to have a central universe, as I explained earlier, to appeal to the huge central audience. Everyone keeps on complaining sometimes from the Snyderverse fandom. Oh, why do people always talk about the mainstream audience? Because you need them. That's how you make the big money. That's why Spider-Man No Way Home is going to make nearly $2 billion globally after all is said and done. And you're going to shout at the screen and say, but Mick, it's not just about money, it's about art, entertainment. Well, guess what? Spider-Man No Way Home is profitable and entertaining. No, it's not an art house movie, and not all comic book movies or films in general have to be art house movies. Man of Steel is an art house superhero movie. So is BVS, and so is Zack Snyder's Justice League. And I appreciate it, and I love it. But that doesn't mean all of a sudden I want every single comic book movie to be an art house movie. I'm not going to go back and watch Superman the movie. The reason I love film and entertainment and Superman as my favourite character in fiction and say, ooh, this is not like the Snyderverse. Look at it, all the smiling. I'm not going to do that. That would be fucking stupid, wouldn't it? Everything has a place. And art house superhero movies are great, but you can't run a studio, you can't run a franchise off of them. Facts. I'm sorry. So again, I love the Snyderverse, but I'm being factual here. So what Ann Sarnoff and Walter Hamada are doing is the right thing for their bottom line, for their company, and their wide consumer. It is the right thing. You may not like it because they won't restore the Snyderverse. I do not agree with the resistance to restore the Snyderverse. It is wrong on every single level, and we will keep on fighting, and that's great. But I'm not. Are you going to go out there and tell people who love Shazam, no, your character doesn't deserve to have movies? Are you going to tell people who love the Aquaman movie, no, you don't deserve to have movies with gags and smiles and brilliant special effects and a mixture of kind of tones and palettes? You're not, are you? That would be arrogant. Because guess what, Snyderverse fans? If you are that type of fan who says your thing is the only thing that matters, then you are the very people who attacked us from Man of Steel and BVS, especially BVS. Remember, if you admitted to loving the Snyderverse, how bullied and trolled you would get? Some of you are doing that to people who love the Shazam movie, who are excited for the Flash movie. You are becoming everything we fought against. Don't be that person. You know, be inclusive. That's the word of the day. Be inclusive. Love what you love. But don't start, yes, the other stuff may not be your cup of tea, but nobody has a right to tell someone who likes fruit pastels instead of a Mars bar, your sweets are chewy and sugary and mine are chocolatey and better. How dare you have fruit pastels? Do you get what I'm saying? No one has the right to disqualify what somebody else loves. I may be attracted to curvy women. I am. Curvy, beautiful women, right? Love them. More slimmer women are not my cup of tea. That doesn't make them wrong, does it? If I went to a slim lady and said, how dare you be slim? How bad would that make me? We all have our different tastes. Do you understand? And it's very important going forward that you understand that. And I want you to understand something else. Shazam didn't only make 300 million because of 10, 20 of you boycotted it. No, that's the audience that were attracted to that movie at that time. People saw it, liked it. It's going to have a huger audience for the sequel because it's now built up on that legend. More people are going to say, yeah, that was a good movie. That's what we want from the DCEU, and that's all right. That's what they want. They're going to go to that movie. And I don't think the Flash movie is going to be kind of entirely MCU kind of gags. I think this is going to be a very dark movie in places, but it's about variety. When you're catering to the central audience, what you've got to do is, because the central audience, you know, the mainstream audience don't want everything light and fluffy. I mean, anyone who's seen Spider-Man No Way Home know that it's pretty dark in places. Spoiler alert, Green Goblin is utterly dark in that movie, maybe darker than in a Raimi movie, right? So there's a variety of tones. Do you understand? You know, sometimes people get tunnel vision. So I'm just reacting from that tweet, basically, saying WB don't have a plan. You can't say that. It's not true. It's not true. They do have a plan. You can say you don't like the plan. You can say, in your opinion, the plan's going to fail. I don't think it is going to fail, but you can say that. But I look at their slate. I look at the way they talk, and I see something special happening. Listen, the MCU is up there. It's literally impossible to take over and beat it. If the DC Extended Universe did that, there'd be no one more happier than me, or even on an equal footing. But the reality is that the DC Extended Universe and DC Live Action may always be behind the MCU. And I'm really comfortable about that. As long as these movies make the right money and get the right reactions, that's all I care about. In the central extended connected multiverse, central kind of fraction of the DC Extended Universe, people need to be pleased. People need to be excited. You know, people need to be as excited as they are for the MCU right now. But in my next video, Cinema Today, I will explain why everything in the Marvel Cinematic Universe isn't rosy when you look at their other movies pre-Spider-Man No Way Home this year. And it's really about Sony taking over the mantle. And I will talk about that in Cinema Today. So please do check out and support that video. And please press like and subscribe and comment down below and all that other fun stuff. Because I hope you can see that I'm just an ordinary fan, just giving you my opinion. So I like the multiverse strategy, I always have, but I am frustrated and angry that the Snyderverse wasn't renewed, the way Zack was treated. Make no mistake, as a WB stan and, you know, a DC stan, I'm embarrassed for Warner Brothers that they ever released a film like Justice League. Don't misunderstand me. Don't get it twisted. But I don't have tunnel vision. I did when I was younger. I was very biased and I didn't see other sides, but I do now. And the point is, they do have a plan. And within this multiverse strategy plan, the Snyderverse can be somewhere else, right? Within this big universe. Like Matt Reeves' The Batman has its own Earth. Like the Joker is from an Elseworld, right? You know, Earth 50 billion or whatever it is, right? And it works. But with the multiverse strategy, the beauty of the multiverse strategy, if Matt Reeves says, you know what, me and my Batman want to kind of do a crossover. And then WB and Walter are going to say, yeah, well, that's going to bring us money. Why not? But until they ask for that, it's fine for them to have self-contained stories. And that's great as well. But if you want to play in the central multiverse universe from next year onwards, right? The central one. Not Matt Reeves' Earth 2, not the Joker universe, but the central one, right? You will have to play in an extended universe with connective tissue. And if you don't, you're going to have to be away from that. So this is what WB are doing very smartly. They're saying, this is what we're doing. We do want to grab some of that MCU money, and why not? We're in a capitalist state. Why shouldn't they attempt to make the most money they can? But there's still a place for the Snyderverse within that plan. There's no question about that. So I'm hugely anticipating and very excited about the future of the DC Extended Universe, but I'm still fighting to restore the Snyderverse. Look, there are factions in every fandom. It's not just DC fans, by the way, that have different factions. Go and talk to Marvel fans. They're not all big fans of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. They're just not on Twitter talking about it. You know, Doctor Who fans are well divided right now. In fact, since the revival, since the very first Rose episode in 2005, we've been divided from classic Who fans to new Who fans. It's everywhere, whether you're a Manchester United fan. It's, you know, there's all factions everywhere. Even in a fucking family, there's factions. You should meet my family now. You don't want to do that. Well, my nieces and nephews are cool. I love you all, really, but you know what I mean. But got myself in trouble there, didn't I? But that's the point. So what I would say to people with their hot takes saying that Warner Brothers don't have a plan, check out the movies next year. Then come back and tell me they don't have a plan. They do have a plan. The fact is, you just don't like that plan. This has been the DCEU Daily. I'm Nick, your host with the most. Just ask your girlfriends and your wives. Like, comment, subscribe and all that fun stuff. And hit the notification bell so you never miss this perfection. And I'll see you again tomorrow with even more fun exclusives on the DCEU Daily. Here on Movies TV Mad, because I'm mad about movies, TV and entertainment. Until tomorrow, I'll see you again soon. Check out Cinema Today later. Until then, goodbye, au revoir, auf Wiedersehen.